introduction to Fight Fire with Fire begins with the enigmatic and Baroque-inspired guitar piece written by Cliff Burton, the bassist of Metallica. Yes, the bass player wrote a guitar piece at the intro of a thrash metal song. That's pretty crazy. Now, the reason why I say Baroque instead of classically inspired, like a lot of other people would say, is because it's more defining of what it actually is. This whole introduction reminds me of something that Johann Sebastian Bach would write. Okay, now if you guys don't know who Johann Sebastian Bach is, you better get your ass on some of that, because he is one of the baddest motherfuckers out there. Well, he's dead, but he's one of the baddest motherfuckers out there in the universe. You know, his spirit lives on through his music. Okay? Get your big wig on, your powdered wig, and just get into it. So I'm going to present this introduction as 5 different parts. Yes, 5 different parts layered on top of each other to create the sound of this section. It sounds as if there might be a harpsichord in there. Now, I can't confirm that anywhere. There's no confirmation that I can find that says what the exact instrumentation here is. But what I'm getting from this is that there's definitely layered 12-string acoustics, and there's a bass part that's buried in the mix that you can just barely hear if you put your ear to the wall. So that bass line starts off with double stops in thirds, okay? And you're starting on a G chord. A minor third, B minor third, and a C. With a little hammer on to the 9th and 10th fret, and then a little staccato on the way down. And then we hit the notes E to D, with that little power chord ring out going on there. And that continues on with the same thing again. And then this time we hit B to A. So all of these are just 2-chord cadence resolutions, which I'm going to go over a little bit later. We come back to the double stops. And then we're here. Here we're resolving from A to G, going back into the double stop. So we just keep coming back to this. And then the final part is an E for an E minor chord, a little G power chord to a C, which is the final resolution before the big fade-in happens. So this part is very much buried into the mix, so listen carefully to try to hear it. The next part that comes in is a 12-string that acts as a double to the bass guitar. So let's hear what that sounds like. G, A, B, C, B, A, and then we're going like this. E to D, 2, 3, G, A, B, C, B, A, B, B, A, 2, 3. Back to the beginning. Just like the bass line, just without the thirds. High A to G, all the second and open string. Last time just strummed E minor to G, and then C, and the rest of it takes over from there. Okay, so basically just a double of the bass part. Next up we have the main melody section that happens on top of the bass line. This actually mimics more of the bass line in the fact that it's double stop thirds. So let's check this out. So coming in right there, we have that little, that's the one difference, is a pull off onto the B instead of that staccato rhythm on the bass line. And then we hit it with this. So this actually outlines an E major chord, which is very interesting because so far we haven't hit anything that really relates to that. This then resolves to the F sharp of a D chord. More double stops, pull off, and this So this actually denotes a B minor 7 to an A major resolution. Come back in, always come back to this. So that almost reminds me of the first one on E, except now we're in the A position. So we're going A, 5th, 3rd, hammer on, pull off, resolving to the B of a G major chord, which is the major 3rd. And then we come back in with this long set of arpeggios that goes like this. E minor 7 to a G major, and then we do this little cadence. Alright, so that little cadence just comes up to a C, play a G, to a B, so now we're on the G chord. So it starts off as a C chord, then we go to a G chord, and then that flat 7 on the G to make it a G7 to a C major chord resolution at the end. The next portion of the 12-string program outlines the arpeggios of the different chords that occur on those right after those 2/4 measures. All right, so this is basically the cadence, or the first part of the resolution. So the first one starts off on a D major chord, just in first inversion on the 4th fret of the D string. All right, so 4th fret on the D, 2nd fret on the G, 3rd fret on the B string. And this is, by the way, to simulate the harpsichord sound. If you harmonize 12-string guitars, they sound a lot like a harpsichord and give off that amazing Baroque feeling that we're going for. So here's the high one. Okay, so that's all on a D major triad. This time it's just in root position, harmonizing with the first one. Okay, the next set of arpeggios that occur are on an A major. So the low part is this. Alright, that's all in a root position A major triad. A, C sharp, and E. The high harmony goes like this, just a first inversion. So we're actually inverting the last one that we did. So instead of the first inversion being on the bottom, we have it on the top. So we go like this. And instead of going to the low A, we just let the high A ring out into the introduction. The next one goes into G, with that slight variation on the bottom there. And the high harmony just goes to a first inversion and hitting an open G to let that ring out. Now this is all to simulate the harpsichord effect. Now the second harmony drops out completely on the last section. A 4-note G major arpeggio at the 5th fret of the D string. Okay, so like the top part of a bar chord. Then we immediately hop up to a first inversion G major arpeggio at the 9th fret of the D string. And then we have this cadence here. Got a C major in first inversion, and then a G major chord, but you want to play it with your middle finger, pinky, and your ring, and bring your pointer in to play that 6th fret on the B string. Now that's your flat 7, which is going to resolve to the major 3rd of the C. Now let's talk about theoretically what's happening. It appears as if it's doing a G major, A minor, B minor, C at first glance. 3 of those chords are correct. Upon a second glance, we have G major, A minor, G over B. So it's a first inversion, G major chord going to the C chord, right? We are not in the key of G. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is why we must take multiple glances at what we're looking at here. This is going to be a third glance. So instead of that G chord being a 1 chord, we have the G chord as being the 5 chord. 5, 6, 5 in first inversion to the 1 chord. Beautiful resolution into 1. Where we then go right into this drop down, which is the same deal. That B just acts as the first inversion 5 chord. And then that I would consider the 6th chord, just A minor. When we hop into the first lick, so that's an E chord. Now the E chord, this could be incredibly tricky for any music theory newbies. This is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the 5 of the 6th chord. Typically when you have a major chord that seems to come out of left field like this, it's a 5 of something. You treat it as a 5 of blah 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 blah, right? So we're treating this as a 5 of 6, all right? Since A minor is the 6th chord of the C major scale, which is the relative minor chord, a very common thing to do is to make the 5 of the minor chord, which would be the 5 of A minor, into a major chord. So it's going to be major 5 of 6. But then, what's going on here? We're immediately resolving to a D major. Wow, that's crazy, huh? That actually is crazy. Now this D major, I would say, is the 5 of the G chord, because that's where it resolves to. 5 of 6 to the 5 of the 5 going back to the 1. Alright, so we're using all of these major chords to eventually get back to C. The second time around, we have the same thing. Now this time, we're hitting sort of a B minor 7 resolution, right? You're going from a B minor to an A major, a B minor 7 to an A major. Now, a B minor 7 can be seen as like a 6th chord going to a 5. Okay, so the A major is a type of 5 chord. It's actually the 5 of the 5 of the 5. So this is some crazy shit going on here. It's like a tertiary dominant chord, right? 5 of D, of G, of C. So eventually we're just using these major chords to pivot back to our C major chord. That's all that's going on here. Now let's take a look at that B minor 7 now. What if it's not a B minor 7? What if it's an E7 sus4 over B? What if it's that? In that case, we get into some even crazier territory. Now you can say, oh yeah, it's the 5 of the 6, but guess what? The A turns into a major chord. It's no longer A minor, so it's not the relative minor to C. So what are we dealing with here? What is E in relation to A? It's the 5. So we're going the 5 of 5 of 5 of 5 back to 1. Alright, now this is sort of a perfect fifth type of thing. Now that's just a hypothetical. That's if that's an E7 sus4 instead of a B minor 7. Now in the real world, none of this really matters, but it's definitely fun to think about, and it shows just how much of a genius Cliff Burton actually was, from a compositional standpoint. Not just being a monstrous bass player, but he was a composer. He actually understood a lot of this stuff that we're talking about. He probably understood all of this stuff we're talking about, and he would probably agree with me, saying, oh yeah man, that was a 5 of a 5 of a 5 of a 5 going to a 1. Naturally, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be?